Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jessica and I'm your host on this channel, Jess Signatures. In today's video, we'll be making this beautiful dress with a yoke. If you're interested, please keep watching. The first thing you do is to make a basic bodice. If you want to see details on how to make a basic bodice, I have a video on this channel and it will be linked to this particular video. Just check the description box, you'd see the link. You can go watch it. So we'll not keep wasting time, we'll just go straight into what we want to do. So just a rundown through what we're about to do is take your basic measurement, your shoulder, the nape of your neck to the bust, to the waist, to the hip, and your full length, and then you rule an horizontal line connecting those points together. After doing that, your shoulder measurement, you take it also on your chest line or your bust line, depending on the line you have drawn. Rule a straight line to connect both points together so you can be able to get your armhole measurement. You come down by 1 inch for your shoulder slope, divide the remaining by 2, and you get your armhole measurement. Like I said before, if you want to see details on how to do this, check my basic bodice pattern on my channel. The next thing to do is to impute your measurements and your seam allowance. If you want seam allowance, you can decide on the amount of seam allowance that you want. If you want half an inch, 1 inch, 2 inches, depends on you what you want. You input your measurement divided by 4 plus your seam allowance all round. You do it on your bust line, on your waistline, on your hip line, and then for the full length, depends on what you want. If it's an A-line dress, you draw it straight out and put your allowance. If it's a pencil dress, you minus 1 or 2 inches from your hip measurement. Whatever you have on your hip measurement, you minus either 1 or 2 inches, depending on how fitted you want it to be. But this one, I just want like a straight dress. I don't want it penciled, so I'm taking the same measurement on my hip for my hemline. So I'm drawing a straight line to connect both points together. Then all I'm doing now is to connect the points together, the points that we marked earlier. Now I'm connecting the hip line to the waist and the waist to the bust line. So all you need to do is simply connect the dots together. If you want to connect the seam allowance different from the main measurement, fine, it's all good. What I'm doing here is trying to make it curvy, because the human body, like I always say, is not straight. The human body is not a straight line, so you cannot draw a straight line. If not, it will just be poking out and you will not like the result. The next thing to do now is to draw my shoulder slope. You can decide to measure it or simply draw it to the top of your pattern. After drawing the shoulder slope, you take in your neck design, whatever design you want for the neck. It depends on you. You can decide to do a square neck, you can decide to do a round neck measurement like I'm doing here. You can decide how wide or how narrow you want it to be. Here I use 3 by 3 inches, so you can decide to do 3 by 4. You could decide to do 2 by 2, depends on what you want and what you're going for. The back measurement, I'm going to do just 1 inch, because I don't want it to be too low on the back. So just 1 inch is okay for the back measurement, and you still use the same width that you used for the front. So that's exactly what I'm doing here, as you can see. The next thing to do is to determine how low you want the yoke to be. If you want the yoke to be as low as 10 inches, feel free to measure and draw your line. If you want it to be as high as 5 inches, maybe you don't want so much skin showing, you can also do that. And also the yoke, you can limit it to just the front, but like you can see on the picture that I showed you, I did for both the front and the back. So you just determine the length you want the yoke and connect it to the midpoint of your armhole. You can decide to come lower, you can decide to stay higher, but I think this is just perfect, the midpoint of your armhole. And what I just did now is to label it as the yoke, and then I added half an inch allowance for the main bodice. I'll be adding the half an inch allowance for the yoke when I'm cutting it out. You see that very soon. The next thing to do is to cut your yoke. Now, that half an inch allowance I told you that I'll be adding for my yoke, this is it now. I'm drawing it out, half an inch allowance. You can decide not to put it, but I think it's best you put it. And then you cut out exactly what you have on your pattern. Now I cut both together. I want to cut out the front neckline and the front armhole. Remember, the front and back neckline and the front and back armhole, they are different, so make sure not to do the mistake of cutting them together. Now I have my front yoke and my back yoke all set. The next thing to do is to join to the fabric. Now the fabric I already cut with the pattern that we drafted earlier, so you just put them together and join it if you're not going to line it. Now this is how to put it together. You just pin it down. You can decide to sew from one side to the midpoint and then notch, then sew to the other side, but because I want to catch it together with my lining, that is why I'm doing it like this. I'm pinning it down. Don't be scared to use your pins. This is what they are for. Use your pins, pin them down so that they will lay flat and you have a perfect finish. Now you see how it's going to come out when I sew. I've not even sewed it, I just pinned it down. So you just sew according to what you have there. But if you'll be lining it like I would, you take your lining that you already cut the same way with your fabric and sandwich the yoke together with the lining. This is the front side of the fabric, the front side of the yoke. You turn the yoke down and sandwich the lining together with the fabric. So what all this grammar just means that the yoke will be in between the fabric and the lining. When you're sewing, it will be in between the fabric and the lining, just like a sandwich. Your fillings will be in between the bread. So that's what we're doing here. No big deal, no, it's really easy if you follow these guidelines. After doing that, you can see how beautiful it's going to look on the front side, and on the back side is going to be seamless. So you do the same thing for the front and the back. You see right here, I've already sewn and pressed down with my iron. That is why it's laying flat. You see the front and the back is looking so nice. You will not see the journey and you'll be wondering, how did this happen? This is how it happened. So you simply do this for both the front and the back. You do the same thing. Now the back yoke, I already split it into two. There was no biggie about it. I just split it into two, and then you join the side seam together with whatever allowance you left, and also fix your zip. That's it. Decide to hem. You hem the top part the way you want. Thank you guys for watching. Please don't forget